First Lady Melania Trump's documentary Melania is set to open tomorrow across 1,500 theaters in select markets. Great news if you're looking for a place to hide out from ICE.
Yes, the Democrat Party and the propaganda machine of the Democrat Party. It's a party of open borders, of Venezuelan gangs, of Salvadoran gangs. It's the party for crime and criminals. They love crime, the Democrats do. They commit most of the crimes, and the crimes they don't commit themselves, they pawn it off on cheap labor. You know, illegal alien gang members, Democrat Party cheap labor. The party of slavery has not really grown up. They're the same as they ever were. And a very good and happy Friday to you. Once again, it's Friday, and it's every week seems like an extended week these days, doesn't it? Because of the mental illnesses of the Democrats and the violent criminal activities that they engage in, and our filthy, rotten, corrupt news media. Of course, we've got that as well. But we got big news going on. We got Don Lemon. Don Lemon in the can. Is Don Lemon in the can? He's been arrested. Don Lemon has been arrested. He's in cuffs, which he likes. He likes the handcuffs thing. And going to the can. He's the jail, the hoosgow, the slammer. Don Lemon, he has been arrested by federal law enforcement. How about that? You know why? Because he was part of that invade the church thing with the pro-illegal alien mob that, hey, Sunday Mass is going on. Let's go in and act like a communist mob of murderous rabble, since that's what they are. And Don Lemon, no, I'm a journalist, he said. And everybody laughed because he was never a journalist even when he was being paid to be a journalist. He's Don Lemon. But pretty funny stuff, a big development, and not the only one from that church invasion it was in St. Paul rather than Minneapolis, attacking the church and terrorizing children. They want to be terrorists, and they're mentally ill, and they have gender dysphoria, and they've got all kinds of things like that. And also, the president named a new chairman to the Federal Reserve, the board of the Federal Reserve, and it is somebody that not everyone knows. Not everyone knows the name, but Jerome Powell being shown the exit. President Trump getting his pick to head the Federal Reserve, and that's a big deal. It's a big thing. The president put out a statement early this morning, and I have that statement for you because there's big news going on all over the place. Those are a couple of the big stories going on today, but not all of them. Don Lemon, he might self-immolate. You'd probably have to put him in protective custody in the can because he might. You don't want him near gasoline and Zippo lighters, anything like that. He's a bit temperamental, a bit moody. But those are a couple of the big stories that we've got today. And I got to tell you, I was going back and forth on Al Gore's amazing internet texting and so on with a friend of mine, a Catholic priest, as a matter of fact, going back and forth. And he said, hey, do you remember this attack on ICE because now we care very deeply, it's the old Joseph Stalin thing that a single death is a tragedy and a million deaths are a statistic. But the Democrat Party, they commit all kinds of massacres and murders and assassinations and sniper rifles. And you remember the lunatic that attacked the ICE facility in Dallas? A sniper the place up, and it was turned out it was a suicide attack. And because I got to remind you of this, it's really something. That the Democrat Party, with their information dominance, they can just make anything. Congressman Steve Scalise was shot and nearly killed by a Bernie Sanders campaign volunteer. That's the Democrat Party on a baseball field in Virginia, Alexandria, Virginia. They were preparing for the annual Republican versus Democrat congressional baseball game, and a Bernie Sanders campaign volunteer showed up. Al-Qaeda was a Democrat presidential campaign volunteer that assassinated Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and the Democrats have scrubbed that from their record, haven't they? But you have Steve Scalise out on the baseball diamond with a Bernie Sanders volunteer with a Chinese communist rifle, showed up, wanted to massacre the entire Republican baseball team. And that was kind of a one-day story, sort of a one-day story. And another one-day story that my Catholic priest friend reminded me of this morning. In Dallas, a lunatic showed up, a sniper with a rifle, and shot up the ICE facility and killed 2 people, critically wounding a third person. And what do I remind you of that, because that's another one of those stories that the Democrat Party just made disappear. And I want to use that as an analogy because 2 people were shot and killed in Minneapolis, and by federal law enforcement, while they both were attacking federal law enforcement, and the Democrats turn the people attacking federal law enforcement into heroes. But when a Democrat shows up with a rifle at an ICE facility to massacre ICE officers, that's and kills 2 people and critically wounds more and more, that's a one-day story, because information dominance is one of the keys to corruption. And the Democrat Party, they've got all the keys to corruption. They're all about corruption, aren't they? And honestly, earlier this week, we had an incident of cannibalism in Minneapolis, where a Democrat literally bit the finger off of a federal law enforcement agent, and the finger was never recovered. It's possible that the Democrat swallowed the finger that he or she, the 2 people arrested, both look transgender, and you got to check them for HIV and stuff since they're engaging in cannibalism. And the agent survived the cannibal attack. And it's interesting because none of this makes it onto Jimmy Fallon's show or onto George Stephanopoulos' show or onto any of these TV shows. It's not on The View. Hey, look, one of the Democrats is a cannibal and bit the finger off of an agent and may have eaten it because it was not recovered so it could be reattached. So the Democrats are cannibals. They're mass murderers. They're self-immolators. They're mentally ill. They engage in gang violence, mob violence all the time. And interestingly, at Time Magazine and CNN and the New York Times, they don't get a reputation of any kind. They don't earn a reputation which they richly deserve. Honestly, we got the cannibalism, we got suicide attacks, we got self-immolations, we've got, and again, 2 people murdered by a sniper at an ICE facility in Dallas, Texas, just a few months ago now. And that story was just a one-day story. Now, I don't want to give the whole thing away, but I'm not going to give the whole thing away. I want to share it with you as we go. But isn't that amazing? And also, what's his name? Micah Xavier Johnson. Who remembers the name Micah Xavier Johnson? We should all remember the name Micah Xavier Johnson, but we don't because of the Democrats. And I'll explain why we should remember the name Micah Xavier Johnson, even though we don't. We know the name Derek Chauvin, and we know Michael Brown, and certainly we know George Floyd, but we don't know Micah Xavier Johnson because the Democrat Party, information dominance, they get to airbrush anything inconvenient out of existence. The news media corruptly writes the first draft of history, and then academia corruptly writes the second draft of history. And when you have lefties here and lefties there, you get the same book no matter what. So we got a few things to get to, and Don Lemon arrested, and that's kind of fun. And I want to get into that because these people, can I just say, these people, they're out of their stinking minds. But it is fun. CBS News is reporting the story today. Breaking, : now that is appropriate. Former CNN anchor Don Lemon is in police custody. Sources say, they have sources, multiple sources that say that now because it says it right there in the thing, and isn't that amazing? The former cable news anchor, that's what he is, that's his title, that's what it says on his business card, former cable news anchor. Don Lemon, CNN, of course, was arrested Thursday night. His attorney, he has an attorney, and multiple sources with direct knowledge told CBS News on Friday. That's today. The arrest comes nearly 2 weeks after Don Lemon was at an anti-immigration protest that disrupted a service at a church in Minnesota. You know, a lot of them, they show up, transgender people, and they shoot up churches and kill children because it's like, for them, very late-term abortion. They don't like children or human beings. A source familiar with the matter said a grand jury was impaneled on Thursday. Isn't that amazing? Grand jury was impaneled on Thursday, and he was arrested on Thursday. I guess it didn't take the grand jury long. FBI and HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, were involved in the arrest. I hope it was pre-dawn and there was a network camera crew across the street like the Democrats always do it. It was not immediately clear what charges Don Lemon would be facing. Abby Lowell, big-time overpaid Washington Democrat Party hack lawyer. Abby Lowell, Lemon's lawyer, confirmed he was taken into custody by federal agents Thursday night in Los Angeles, California, where he was covering this weekend's Grammy Awards. Sure he was. Yeah, we know what he was doing. Don has been a journalist for 30 years. Yeah, sure he has. And his constitutionally protected work in Minneapolis was no different than what he has always done. Well, in some respect, that's probably true. It was ridiculous anti-journalist hackery, political activism. So, yeah, I guess it's no different than what he's always done. Abby Lowell said in a statement, the First Amendment, like to freely practice your religion in peace, because that's the first element of the First Amendment. Abby Lowell says, the First Amendment exists to protect journalists. It exists first and foremost to protect people practicing their religion, which he and the violent mob of mentally ill transgender people violated. To protect journalists whose role it is to shine light on the truth, something he's never done, and hold those in power accountable. That's something else he's never done, except maybe under cover of darkness involving tie wraps and handcuffs, but that's another thing. There is no more important time for people like Don to be doing this work. Yeah, I think there's plenty more important time. But that's Abby Lowell said the Justice Department was focused on arresting Don Lemon instead of investigating the federal agents who killed Renee Good and Alex Preddy. You mean Renee Good, who crashed her car into a federal agent when she was shot, and Alex Preddy, who repeatedly showed up armed to violently attack federal law enforcement. And the Democrats, you see, the murderers, the criminals are their heroes. Abby Lowell's heroes are all criminals. Well, he is a lawyer after all, but, you know, he's a Democrat, so he got that. And he said, yeah, instead of, they got to prosecute law enforcement for enforcing the law, and just as every cop is a criminal and all the sinners saints, the Democrat Party, they're not the Rolling Stones, but they've got some mental issues related to Rolling Stones lyrics, I think. So Renee Good and Alex Preddy in Minnesota earlier this month, calling it the real indictment of wrongdoing in this case. Yeah, sure, that's what's going on. This unprecedented attack, it's not an unprecedented attack on the First Amendment. It's not an attack on the First Amendment. It's defending the First Amendment and people's right to freely practice their religion, the first of 5 elements in the First Amendment, just by the way. And your fake journalist, your phony journalist who's never held anybody's feet to the fire except maybe in a dungeon room somewhere where he paid extra. But that's another thing. Last week, a federal appellate court declined to order a lower court judge to sign an arrest warrant for 5 people, including Don Lemon, in connection with the January 18th anti-ICE protest inside a church in St. Paul, Minnesota. However, one of the 3 appellate court judges said he felt there was probable cause to justify the arrest, according to court filings and sources familiar with the matter. They've got sources who are familiar with the matter, which is handy, I think, if you're writing articles about it. Multiple people have been charged in connection with that protest when demonstrators entered St. Paul's City's Church after discovering that one of its that one of its pastors is an ICE official. Oh, no, he's an ICE official, and on weekends he's a pastor. So naturally, you got to go attack the church. That reminds me of the Democrat that crashed his car repeatedly into a synagogue in Brooklyn, New York, night before last because he found out there are Jews in there, and you can't have a building with Jews being left in peace. So he crashed his car and wanted to kill people and all that, and the Democrat Party. The Justice Department has asked the appellate court to compel the U.S. District Court in Minnesota to sign the arrest warrant over civil rights charges, alleging the defendants were unlawfully interfering with the churchgoers' constitutionally protected freedom to practice religion. I think that's a good idea. Isn't that amazing? So Don Lemon, is he in the can? Is he in Newsgau? Is he in cuffs? Protective custody? Maybe that I was arrested in L.A. Otherwise, maybe they could put him in with Luigi Mangione. Did you see a Democrat tried to break Luigi Mangione out of jail in New York City? He brought a pizza cutter and a barbecue fork, and he wanted to break, and he said he's an FBI agent. He went to the jail in New York, said, "I'm here to let Luigi Mangione out. I'm an FBI agent." The Democrat Party, honestly, membership in the Democrat Party is a mental illness. And you'll never guess what Don Lemon's response is to his being arrested. I know it'll be shocking. We are at 888-630-9625. All right, we have returned on this Great American Friday. It's a little brisk out there. We got, what's this, the term of the week, snowcrete. Now, it's just snow and a little bit of ice. Everything has to be apocalyptic. Let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Doug calling from Clifton, Virginia. Douglas, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Well, unfortunately, the prediction that I made on your great show has come true. Several weeks ago, I said when Zohran Mamdani became mayor of New York City, with his anti-Semitic rhetoric, with him putting in anti-Semitic people in positions of power, with him reducing restrictions which allow more protests outside of centers of Jewish congregation, this week we had a car ramming attack on the Chabad headquarters at 770 in Crown Heights. Uh-huh. And I hold Zohran Mamdani directly responsible. The Democrats talk about Republican dog whistles. Well, these guys are already set off to go. And with his behavior and his attitudes and his policies, it has made this type of attack all the more likely.
Well, 100% true, of course. And Democrats, including Jewish Democrats in New York, voted for Zohran Mamdani, I think, honestly, Doug, knowing that he is a frothy anti-Semite and he's anti-American, he's anti-capitalist, he's, what is he, Doug? He's a Democrat. Such great stuff. Yeah, we've got Don Lemon. We're not going to have Don Lemon on the show or anything. He's too stupid. Even if he phoned in, well, maybe if he phoned in, we can make fun of him for a couple of minutes. But Don Lemon, the first, one of the first texts I got this morning was a link to the story. Federal agents arrest Don Lemon over Minnesota church protest. And this story, a former CNN anchor has said that he was not demonstrating. Of course he was. He was coordinating with the rioters before they even got to the church, and he posted the videos saying as much. But reporting as a journalist. He's never actually been a journalist. During the interruption of a service inside a St. Paul, Minnesota church earlier this month. Now, this link came from a friend of mine who's been in the news business forever, and he said with this attachment, about beepin' time, he said, biggest piece of beep I've ever worked with, and he's been in the business for a long, long time. And my friend said, Don Lemon, a complete fraud, he said long ago, working with Don Lemon. And Don Lemon went out to a Best Buy dressed in all black with a black hoodie over his head, and wandered around the Best Buy for 2 hours doing nothing and not buying anything. And finally, someone with the store came over and asked him to leave because, you're creepy and you're black hoodie and you're wandering around for 2 hours not doing anything. So they asked him to leave. And then, as a fake journalist, he claimed that he was racially profiled, right? And, of course, he had made the whole thing up, but never mind that. And then he got a job as an anchor by NBC News in Chicago. And they, at NBC News in Chicago, they wanted to send him out into the field to cover a murder, because it's Chicago, and, they like a couple of those a day. You might cover those. And he refused to go out into the field to cover the murder and said that they wouldn't send a white anchor out into the field to cover a murder. And then naturally he was promoted and got a job at CNN. CNN decided that he was so awful that they were going to fire him. And I've told you about this in the past. CNN was on the brink of firing him. His contract was up and like, we're not going to renew you. And that's when Don Lemon said, oh, have I mentioned that I'm gay? I'm not only black, I'm black and gay. You can't fire me now. And CNN said, you're right, we can't fire you now. So they gave him a promotion, gave him more money because he's black and gay. And then he's Don Lemon, TV news reporter at CNN. Isn't it crazy business? It's liberals. This is liberal thing. All right, and with that said, I know a lot of people have encountered Don Lemon. Let's go to the phones, Michael. Let's go to Ali, calling from Fairfax, Virginia. Ali, my friend, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Happy Friday, Chris, to you and to your listeners. It's always great to talk to you. I have a story I think you will appreciate about Don Lemon, like you said.
Uh-huh.
It was St. Louis 2014 after the Michael Brown shooting.
Uh-huh.
And I was working at the time as a field producer with a TV station. I don't want to mention the name.
Uh-huh.
And our live position was next to Don Lemon.
Uh-huh.
He was doing his live shot. So he did his live shot. I was doing my live shot next to him. After I finished my live shot, I saw him, looking at me, and he said, oh, you're speaking in Arabic. Where are you from? So we had a little chat, and he said, I said, I'm from Iraq, and he said, oh, ISIS just, took Mosul. It was a month before that. Would you mind we just talk about it a little bit? I said, sure. So we talked about it for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So just to think about it, Chris, he did not talk to anybody between his live shot and then the next live shot. It was just me.
Right.
Standing next to him, chatting about ISIS in Iraq. After that, he went on air. Since he's next to me, I was listening. I said, hey, let's see what Don will be talking about. Because literally, he did not do any news gathering between the two live shots.
Right.
When he did go on air, he said, between the live shots, I just got a new update from my sources. Obviously, they love their sources. I just got an update from my sources, and they are telling me things will get hot. Literally, he said that. I still remember it. He said, things will get hot. And we're still watching the situation. You cannot see it, but it's behind the camera. I see dozen people gathering, and I look behind the camera, Chris. There is a white lady, sitting, giving two people have signs, two people have signs, and the white old lady was giving them donuts. So he was literally telling the audience, behind the camera, you cannot see it, but behind the camera there are two dozens people gathering, preparing for the things to get hot. Nothing got hot that day. I went to the hotel around like 6 p.m. or something. Wolf Blitzer was on air and a couple others. And till 6 p.m., they were saying, and we are still monitoring the situation in St. Louis because sources told Don Lemon things will get hot. So,
wow, there you go. And you're a reporter, and he's talking to you. There's a scene in the movie Broadcast News where the reporters at the White House are talking to each other, and then the reporter goes on the air and say, White House sources tell me, and it was another White House reporter that he was talking to. A scene in the movie
I did not see that movie, but I lived it.
Yeah, right, exactly, and that's why they were mocking it in the movie Does that really happen? And yeah, that really happens. And you're telling yet another story of reporter talking to another reporter, two live shot reporters in front of cameras. One talks to the other, and then so my sources tell me, and then two white ladies with signs, and oh yeah, things are going to get out, and they're handing out donuts. And Ali, that reminds me of the Governor Walz in Minnesota called up the National Guard the other day and had them come out in Minneapolis. And the National Guard has set up tents where they're handing out donuts, hot coffee, and hot chocolate to the protesters who are there opposing federal law enforcement. And that is the Democrats calling up the National Guard to fuel and provide comfort to the mobs of protesters that are violently attacking federal law enforcement. There's a body count there, and they're okay with all that. Ali, you've been there and done that. And Don Lemon, that's great stuff. So when you hear this, going to the Best Buy and walking around until he gets kicked out and then crying racism, that doesn't surprise you at all.
Actually, I was I was not planning to call. I'm driving to D.C. and I was not planning to call. But then when I was listening to you and you talked about Don Lemon and he's getting arrested, it's like finally somebody's doing something about it. This guy been hogging the news for years and years, and he's not the only one. And you know that better than anyone else.
Yeah, that's a fact. It's they're not in the truth business, but we here, Ali, are in the truth business.
Oh, that's a tough job, and God bless you for doing it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ali. Thanks, buddy. Great stuff. You got a personal Don Lemon story. A lot of people, I'm sure, have personal Don Lemon stories, right? Because the Democrats, they assume that they're going to get away with everything, and most of the time they do, and that's why they assume they're going to get away with everything. And I got to tell you, there's there have been two people killed in confrontations with ICE in Minnesota very recently. We got Good and Pretty. They're going to have a movie called Good and Pretty. I think they should have a candy like movie theater candy, Good and Pretty, because this is the Democrat Party, and boy, oh boy. Now let me remind you of something. When speaking of two people being killed, and I've got I just want to share this story because the Democrats, and still, again, the Joseph Stalin thing, a single death is a tragedy, and a million deaths are a statistic, right? In September of 2025, it is still just barely January of 2026. So just a few months ago, the Department of Homeland Security put out a statement. I have it in front of me here from September 24th of 2025. DHS, that's the Department of Homeland Security, DHS issues statement on targeted attack on Dallas ICE facility. This is one of those one-day stories that the news media makes go away because it might not be good for the Democrat Party. This morning, September 24th, a sniper opened fire from a nearby rooftop on a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Dallas field office. The shooter fired indiscriminately at the ICE building, including at a van in the Sally Port, where the vehicle comes in, where the victims were shot. Now listen, the guy was there to shoot and kill ICE agents. 3 detainees were shot. You may remember this. 1 detainee is deceased, and the other 2 are in critical condition. The truth is, one of the guys that he shot died 6 days later, was in critical condition until he died 6 days later. And the gunman was found dead with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Now, here's the thing. It was a suicide attack on an ICE facility in Dallas, Texas, where the Democrat showed up with a rifle, got on a rooftop, thought that he saw ICE people arriving, and there were ICE people arriving driving the van. But they had 3 illegal alien detainees in the back, and this Democrat shot up the van as it was pulling in and shot 3 illegal aliens in the back, killing 2 of them. The sniper, the Democrat, right? And Kristi Noem said, our prayers are with the family and those killed, and our ICE enforcement, our ICE law enforcement. Now, he was there to murder them, right? So we got that. The vile attack was motivated by hatred for ICE, Kristi Noem said, which was ginned up by the Democrat Party, of course. For months, we've been warning politicians and the media to tone down their rhetoric. And that's, you got Tom Homan out there yesterday saying, can we tone down the rhetoric? Here we are back in September when 3 people were shot by a sniper at an ICE facility, 2 of them murdered, 1 of them critically wounded by a sniper who then killed himself because the Democrat Party is a suicidal death cult. They're like Jonestown in slow motion. But we've got this. For months, we've been warning politicians, the media, to tone down the rhetoric about ICE law enforcement before someone was killed. This shooting must serve as a wake-up call to the far left and that their rhetoric about ICE has consequences, comparing ICE and day in, day out to Nazi Gestapo. This is back in September. The last time they were compared to Nazi Gestapo by elected Democrats was several times this week. Day before yesterday, the governor, Democrat governor in Minnesota, the Democrat mayor in Minneapolis and Mogadishu, Minnesota. Isn't that amazing? So the men and women of ICE are fathers and mothers, sons and daughters. They get up every morning and try to make our communities safer like everyone else. We just want to go home to our families at night, Kristi Noem said, and said the violence and dehumanization that these men and women who are simply enforcing the law must stop. We are praying for the victims and their families. Now, the thing is, this is not the first attack on the facility, they said. Last month, there was a bomb threat at the facility. Unknown male subject, later identified as Bretton Dean Wilkinson, 36-year-old U.S. citizen, arrived, he's a Democrat, at the reporting entrance of the Dallas field office, claimed to have a bomb in his backpack at approximately 6:37 p.m. local time. Probably been drinking, Democrats. The subject showed the security officer what he claimed to be a detonator on his wrists. A shelter in place was issued for the facility. Officer called 911. Local police responded, unlike in Minnesota, because of the Democrats. With the bomb squad, Wilkinson was taken into custody by local law enforcement charged with making terroristic threats. Now, nobody even remembers this incident because the Democrats just make these things go away. The news media doesn't report them. They don't talk about them. But that's a pretty amazing story, right? And who doesn't remember that? Well, almost nobody remembers that because the Democrat Party, they just make it go away. That's the thing about the Democrats. So 2 of these people were killed by a sniper at the ICE facility, and what's the problem with that, right? That's no big thing. Also, another one that should be remembered now, 9 years ago, coming up on 10 years ago, 2016 mass murder of police officers at a Dallas Black Lives Matter rally by a guy named Micah Xavier Johnson, who ambushed and shot police officers, Dallas, Texas, killing 5 police officers, shooting and wounding 9 more, and shooting and wounding 2 civilians. The 25-year-old Democrat, Micah Johnson, decided to go to the Black Lives Matter rally with a rifle and target the police because, Black Lives Matter and all that stuff. Although 9,000 black people were murdered last year in the United States, overwhelmingly by black Democrats, but pay no attention to that. So this guy showed up, and he was fighting the police to the death, and he was armed to the teeth with a rifle and a parking garage, and the police eventually had to send a robot in with a bomb and blow the guy up because there was no way to approach him. He had taken up a secure position in a concrete parking garage, and they had to send a robot in and drop a bomb in front of him. They told him, come out, wherever you are, and he refused. He wanted to shoot everybody, and with his semi-automatic rifle, he shot and killed 5 and shot and wounded. It's just completely crazy. He was angry over police shooting of black men. Sure, right, yeah, because that's what's going on. There are more people killed in lightning strikes every year in the United States, literally true, than there are black people killed by police when they're not attacking them with weapons. But that's, never mind that. And never mind the 9,000 murders a year in the United States of black people. never mind any of that. But these are, this is the Democrat Party, and boy, I gotta tell you, these people. And the ICE facility shooting just a few months ago, September of 2025, Joshua Jean, J-A-H-N, Joshua Jean, or Juan, shot the 3 people detained at the U.S. Immigration Customs Enforcement facility and near Love Field, Dallas, Texas. That's where John F. Kennedy flew in the day that a communist shot him in the head, who are the Democrats today, the communists, So fired multiple rounds nearby rooftop, and the one victim was killed on the scene. 2 others were taken to nearby hospitals in critical condition. One of them died from his injuries 6 days later, and in that all 3 were in a van, and they were pulling into the ICE facility when the Democrat, Joshua Jean, decided to open fire on the vehicle and killed 2 of them, wounded 1 more, and then he killed himself, which is a step saver, I've got to say. And that was just a few months ago. Now, that's not going to be Renee Good, right? And that's not going to be Alex, who they just like to call Alex. And they turn them into heroes and martyrs. But the people that they're murdering all over the place, a sniper shot President Trump, a sniper shot and killed Charlie Kirk. These are all Democrat crimes, everything that I'm naming here. And somehow in the media, the Republicans are the bad guys and white men are the bad guys. There's a mental illness loose in the country today, and its name is the Democrat Party. Well, Democrats are already conspiring to behave like the communists that they are because Don Lemon, wait till you hear this, they want to just become the fascist Nazis that they call everybody else. Let's go to Brian calling from Mount Airy, Maryland. Brian, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, good morning, Chris. Thank you for taking my call.
Hey, Brian.
I've been listening to this Alex Pretty talk and this poor Renee Good, and there's this just overwhelming desire to lionize and make them look like heroes and then say that they didn't deserve being killed. And, I agree. They didn't deserve to be killed any more than I would think or want a drunk driver to deserve to be killed because of what they did driving home one night. At the same time, I think that you've got to consider that the person that really doesn't deserve to die is the poor, sober mother or father driving home to their kids that happens to cross the path of a person who made some really bad life choices.
And the federal law enforcement officers that are enforcing the law, they don't deserve to be killed by the gun-toting mental case either.